James Duncan with a track called You Are the Sun. It's now 17 away from 9.
You're listening to the Radio Wammo Breakfast, only on Kiwi.
And joining me now in the Kiwi studio to talk politics, wrap up the year, it is Mr. Phil Goff, leader of the Labour Party. G'day there to you, Phil.
G'day, Wammo. Nice to see you face to face at Christmas like this.
Yeah, we do it every year around about this time.
Yeah.
Sort of, wrap up the year that was. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling good. Looking forward to a bit of a break.
Not exhausted?
Oh, I always feel exhausted at the end of the year, but you don't wind down too much because you've got to wind up again. But
yeah.
No, it's been a tough year in terms of the hours you put into it. When I was a cabinet minister, I used to do about an 80-hour week and think, well, that's about as far as you'd want to take it. I reckon I'm putting in about 95 now, and it's just the extra responsibilities you have as party leader. You're all around the country. You're doing a lot of different things. But hey, I find it challenging. It's if I didn't like it, I wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, and does it feel like treading water this year at all? You know, because your population ratings haven't. I mean, they climbed just a little bit at the end of the year, but you know, it's just trying to gain traction with the people in New Zealand.
Yeah, look. I knew it was going to be a hard year. Always is. You lose an election, as we did November 2008. You're not the news anymore. It's the new guys that are in government that are going to make the news. They're going to have a pretty good honeymoon. I think probably the best thing going for the government this year was the very low expectations. This time last year, you'll recall, we were wondering whether the whole world was going to go into depression.
Yeah.
That was a real threat. We could have gone back to the 1930s. Fortunately, the US economy has just started to rally a bit. The Chinese have put a lot of money into stimulus, the Australians, the Europeans, and the year hasn't been as bad as most of us might have feared internationally. Been bad for some people, though. 150,000 people out of work, another, hundreds of thousands of people who have had no pay rise, but the cost of living has gone up. Next year, I think we're looking forward to the recovery starting to feed into people's pay packets. A better year, we hope, for everyone.
It's interesting because I had my fingerless gloves ready, and I was ready to line up at the soup kitchens, but that apocalyptic kind of thing it never happened. But I mean, there is still a possibility of that.
Oh,
surely.
yeah. Look, people talk about a W-shaped recovery. It could go down again before it goes up.
Yeah.
I see Joseph Stiglitz from the United States saying that they may go into another recession next year. I mean, there's still a bit of uncertainty around, but people are feeling better because, unlike the 1930s, we didn't sort of try to block everybody else's exports into our own countries.
Right.
We put the stimulus in rather than cutting back, so that it was counter-cyclical. And in New Zealand, we started off in a pretty good position. We had the lowest unemployment in the Western world. We had the lowest level of government debt in the Western world, one of the highest credit ratings we'd had in 25 years. So the new government did get a bit of a boost, I think, in that way, starting off from a good base. And as I say, it's not as bad as it could have been. But, you and I can say that from the comfortable position of being employed.
Still got jobs, yeah.
Yeah, we got jobs, but hey, I was listening to the Auckland City Missioner last week. She's saying, double the number of people coming through the Auckland City Mission, looking to try to feed 2,000 people on Christmas Day. And I guess as we tuck into our Christmas hams on Christmas Day, just spend a little bit of time thinking about those that really have had a tougher year, and hope that we can make it a better year for them next year.
Yeah, and in some ways, some of the issues that were at the forefront over the past few years did sit on the back burner this year, like climate. Even though we had the big Copenhagen climate change, it wasn't really what people were worried about. And maybe that's indicated in the kind of the results of the conference itself, where there hasn't really been any kind of great arrangement, that the world can stick to.
Well, pretty disappointing result, really. Every year that goes by and we don't take action, it means that the action that we ultimately have to take will be more dramatic and more drastic and more painful. I guess it's the nature of the human condition that you worry about what's immediately in front of you and you put off what's further down the track. And a lot of people out there, they know that climate change is coming. They know that it's going to be bad, but hey, it's not here yet.
Yeah.
Now, that's an unfortunate attitude to take. We would have hoped that there would have been a greater spirit of compromise, readiness to come together. United States and China, two key players, but not prepared to compromise to the extent that they needed to.
Yeah.
And we've got this thing, it's a non-binding agreement. It says we've got to set the target at 2%, but it doesn't really say how we're going to get there. So you've got to say disappointing, but next year's another year, and hopefully people will gather together in Mexico next year and with a greater determination.
But I think you just touched on something there that really disappoints me about politics as well, is that with the election cycle, people only think in the short term. You know, they only think about 3 years ahead and when they can get elected back in. What we need, do we not need leaders who can forward think into the future and actually make our future far more solid than it currently is?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I think of the two big examples this year where we've put off till tomorrow a problem that we weren't prepared to tackle today. One was superannuation, where we've cut the funding that's going into it, the $2 billion a year. That was an easy saving for the government to take because it doesn't have any effect immediately. But it does put superannuation in jeopardy further down the track. And the second is the emissions trading scheme. We float this idea. I don't know whether it means anything at all to people. $110 billion. That's the debt that this emissions trading legislation has put on the taxpayer, not the emitter. Because we don't put it on the emitter, it means that they don't reduce their emissions, so the taxpayer keeps on paying. But those are two huge problems, super and emissions trading, where we've put off till tomorrow the problem that we should have confronted today.
Is the problem here because it seems like a small tax on people and it's not big lump sums that's coming out of people's wallets, so therefore they're not going to notice it? You're
not going to notice it tomorrow, and in 10 years' time, when it's really hurting, people might say, that bloody key government, why didn't they do something about it? But by that time, the government's gone. So, I think it's a classic case of don't take the hard decision now because somebody will be hurt by it. Put it off, leave it for somebody else. Yeah, sure, it'll get worse later on, but at least we won't have to deal with it. And, I think you're right, Wammo. That's one of the real problems. The 3-year political term, current leadership thinking only in terms of how they can maximise their vote. They've done it pretty well this year. How they can try to make sure they win next time around, and to heck with what happens in 9 years' time.
And I think Labor's been guilty of that as well in the past. How are you going to break out of that mould?
Well, yes and no. I'm sure that there are occasions where we've taken soft decisions in the past, but there are equally some really good things that we did. The Cullen Fund, where we built up $15 billion to help meet the cost of superannuation in the future, that was looking forward. Paying off the debt, bringing down the debt by 78% in New Zealand. We could have given tax cuts, would have been immediately popular because of tax cuts, but Mike Cullen quite properly said, with the support of our cabinet, no, look, we've got to think of the future, pay down the debt now, because the economy's not going to boom forever, and when we go into a depression or a recession, we need to have that fat stored away that can help us through. And what we did then was really good for the government now. Okay, it would have been better for us if we'd given the tax cuts, but there would have been a big cost to pay for that right now if we'd done that.
Well, it's the end of the year, and you are going to take a break, Phil. What are you going to do over the next few weeks?
Well, there's a sort of a list the length of my arm that my wife has drawn up. You've been away from home all year. Now, here's the things I want done around home. So, next 4 or 5 days, I'll be out with the chainsaw, fixing a few fences, taking down some privet trees,
look out.
fixing up the barn. Yeah. I got to think about that accident compensation and try to avoid it.
And you got to get rid of those privet trees. They're a noxious weed.
They are a noxious weed, and we're also on tank water at home. So all the when it flowers, all the stuff goes into the tank and turns the water brackish.
I thought you were in Mount Roskill.
I represent Mount Roskill. I've got a small block of land out at just out of Papakura, out at Ardmore. Yeah. And then we're going to hop on the motorbike and head down. I'm going to an event called Par Wars on the east coast. Tolaga Bay. It's where all the hapu from around Ngāti Porou come together. They have a sports competition. Great day. Did it last year. Then we'll make our way up the coast, around the Bay of Plenty, through to Taupo, and then up to Coromandel. Given the Triumph a bit of a burst, because it might be sadly neglected over the rest of the year, but we'll get out and have a few beers, not while we're driving, and spend a bit of time on the beach with thousands of other Kiwi families doing exactly the same.
Cool. Sounds like it's going to be fun. So how many of you on the road at one time?
Be about 5 of us, and be the 3 motorbikes, myself, Rick Barker, and Annette King's husband, Ray. So he's
it's a political typical biker gang.
Yeah. Well, we get on pretty well. Rick's got a dirty big a 2.3 litre Triumph Rocket 3.
Nice.
I've got a Triumph Bonneville, and Ray, he's the odd one out. He's got a Kawasaki, a Quacker. So we'll be taking it gently, but it's good. You know, the breeze in your face, and out there, you're not in the bubble that you're in when you're in a car.
Yeah,
you can enjoy
smell
the road.
Everything.
Yeah. Some of the things you'd rather not smell, probably. You always know when there's roadkill around. But hey, no, it'll be a great one. So I'd just like to wish you, Wammo, and all your listeners a really Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope everybody has a chance to relax, spend some quality time in the summer with their family and friends.
Thanks, Phil, and to you and your family as well. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Thanks a lot. Have a